You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Hey everybody, it's All Things 3D again. Mike's showing us a video here. What is this?
You'll see. How's the volume? Is it too loud? Can we
No,
talk
it's
over?
perfect.
Good.
See lakes, rivers, ice, a chainsaw. Ooh.
You know, it's so funny. We've been doing additive printing for about 2 years now, and I so much want CNC now.
I believe they call this machine porn. It's a CNC. It's chipping away. Ooh. Ah, this is my kind of party here. Oh, that's too cool.
Okay, well, that's a segue. Later on, I'm going to show how to make your own ice cubes. That'll be part of my, what do you want to call, virtual toolbox, as well as something that I did some time ago with candy. I had some molds, so we'll be able to do our own pouring of some beverages. Just won't be of this kind. All right, Chris.
Well, welcome to All Things 3D. I'm Chris, co-host
And I'm Mike.
Yeah, and we're today's episode is April 3rd, 2015, and we are Week in Review. It's our Friday episode. Happy to be back. Been gone for a few weeks, Mike. Sorry about that. It's
Man,
I know.
I almost threw in the towel last week.
I know. I don't blame you, and but I'm really happy to be back and talking it up with you, my good friend Mike here. So the first story for today that I wanted to pick is, we've touched on this a few weeks ago, but the TIKO went live on Kickstarter this week, and the TIKO is the world's first, to my knowledge, uni-body Delta printer, if not uni-body 3D printer. And they put a nice video together, and it's a $179 Delta printer. So I think it's one of the lowest cost entry printers. It's uni-body, has a flexible base. We'll just check out their little video they did a really good job on their videos and their whole Kickstarter page. As you can see, they're 3 days in, and they've already raised $720+ thousand of their 100,000 goal, so they've well surpassed their goal. So you can kind of go on their Kickstarter page, just type in TIKO printer. You can check out exactly how it works. The way they bring the cost down is they have this unibody design, which is really clever.
You know, Chris, guess who we've got as our guest today? Our guest crashers.
I think we might have one of these people from the TIKO company themselves here to join us. Is that right?
That's right. And instead of us trying to tell the audience what this particular printer is, Matt, are you still out there? Sharon, Mike, you have the floor, and if you want to, if you can see the video, just kind of talk over it. I'm going to go ahead and go out to your website, and I'll just scroll through it. Actually.
Sounds like we might have lost him.
No, I'm here, and I've got the other two TIKOs here with me.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
So I've got your website up. Actually, I've got the Kickstarter up, and as Chris alluded to, you are well off to, in a matter of 3 days, obviously exceeding your 100,000 goal by 7 times more than it should have been. No, obviously it's probably beyond your wild dreams. And as I mentioned in the questions to you guys, are 3D rock stars now. So how does it feel to have all this fame and celebrity?
It feels good, but at the end of the day, we're still musicians. You know what I mean? We're just happy that we have so many backers, so many people believing in what we're doing and being a part of it.
Well, as one of the things I mentioned in my questions, and let me see, yes, they're all gone. What am I going to do now? My poor kids, with pause, are not going to be able to 3D print this Christmas. Oh, wait, pledge 100. Okay, so I guess if I want to wait till December, I can still get one. Yes? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
we've got some really good manufacturing partners that are handling a lot of the complexities. We're not trying to build up our own manufacturing facility from scratch, and I think we're pretty confident about our delivery times. And who knows, maybe you'll have a chance to put it under the tree.
Oh, well, my little furry kids will appreciate that. You know, it's always the excuse for the parent, so in this case, it really will be. Okay, well, as Chris mentioned, he was going to talk about the uni-body, and that was one of my questions. So kind of give us an overview. I'll have, if you can see the images, this is an illustration that kind of identifies the features. If you want to go through them real quick for us, I'd appreciate it. And then I've got some a little bit more narrow-focused questions, and I think Chris probably has some as well. So go ahead, please. And who's this speaking now? Is this Matt or Mike?
This is Matt right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so looking at the diagram here, the spec sheet, there's a whole lot of information packed in there. You, of course, have the size of the printer itself. We made TIKO very compact, and it's also designed to fit in a very golden size range. That's great for things like shipping, for fitting a certain size spool. There's a lot of advantages to the size we chose. The weight is also there. TIKO is quite lightweight. As you could tell in the video, it's designed to be picked up. Most 3D printers have a very heavy frame, whereas TIKO is extremely lightweight, so tons of benefits stem from that. We've got our layer resolution, which is very fine. TIKO does not have a problem going right down in and doing very accurate prints. It's very easy. We fit a 1 kilogram roll of filament. It's a lot more than some other compact printers. You don't want to keep running out of filament. It sucks every time, and TIKO holds a lot. We've got a whole bunch of different materials that TIKO supports, so ABS, PLA, nylon, HIPS, all these different plastics have different properties. There's so many other ones out there that we're still testing. We think 3D printing in general has so much potential, and a lot of it lays in the materials, and so we're happy to support so many types. We've got a big print volume down there, so even though TIKO's small, it can print some pretty large parts. We've got a good max nozzle temperature, so you can print a whole lot of these plastics that require a bit hotter temperatures. So really there's a whole lot of information, but it just shows how capable TIKO is.
You know, that's just all I can say is wow. And I actually covered this a couple of weeks ago, Chris, in your absence, briefly. When I saw it in the news, I'm thinking, how can they do it? If you remember, Chris, I can't remember the name of the company and probably don't want to disclose it, because they did something similar to this around the holiday to take advantage of it for about $200, and it was probably the worst printer on the market. Obviously, this is not going to be the case with this one. And I will go through some of the illustrations to indicate that. One, as Chris just mentioned, this is a uni-body design, which is very unique. You know, both Chris and I have Delta printers, and we're aware of the open frame structure. The other thing that I'm going to bring up right away is you say you can print in all these materials, but one of the reasons you can't on many printers is that they don't have heated beds. I don't think that's the case here. So maybe you can get a little bit into the theory of how this thing works.
Sure. Well, we actually had this breakthrough moment, which, I don't know, it might be common sense to some people, but we had a thermal imaging camera, and we looked at a 3D print, and we noticed the whole thing was pretty warm. And the reason for that is because you've got this hot plastic coming down at the top, and it's just conducting down to the bottom, and you have this evenly warm part. But when you have a printer that's open, wind can easily come in and deform it. Even with PLA, that doesn't really warp. With our other 3D printer that we have near the window, if we open that window, stuff warps right away. So enclosing TIKO was really a big deal. It meant that the internal conditions are much more controlled. We don't actively heat it, but it gets a little bit warm in there, and that also helps the plastic not warp. We also have the unique coating on our print bed, which is very sticky to certain plastics, to most plastics that we've used. So it's a whole lot of little things that add up to give to create a printer that prints all sorts of plastics quite consistently.
Chris, you want to chime in there?
Yeah, so one thing that I did notice that you guys might have like your own software. Are you using open source software, or are you using your own software?
No, just the same way that we've innovated a lot in the hardware because we thought that we could do it better. We're doing the same thing with software. Now it's hard to tell at these early stages because we haven't shown much of our software yet. It's still in development. But we feel that with TIKO, because it's such a rigorously tested platform, we can optimize 90% of the settings that would normally be controllable in other softwares. And so because we distill everything down to only a few remaining settings, like nozzle temperature, infill, things like that, we can offer people a seamless user experience. I mean, just one thing that every 3D printing software allows you to control is speed. TIKO's doesn't. TIKO is always running at full speed, and it's still accurate. So it's things like that that we optimize so that you don't have to tinker with those things.
Right. Yeah, it's very cool. And I did notice there's some sort of you have a passive cooling on the head. So I'm going to go down and see if I can find. I did notice at the end here. Here it is. There's no fan on the hot end, which is unique. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, we've put almost as many R&D dollars into our hot end design as we have for the rest of the entire printer. It took a lot of time and pardon me, effort to get right, but we knew that there were a lot of benefits to dropping the fan. Cost was one of them. Size was another. We wanted to maximize the print volume, so we needed to have a very compact liquefier. So TIKO's hot end focuses on improving convection and not requiring any additional airflow. Actually, those red arrows you see, that's where the hot air from the nozzle passes through these vents. The air that passes through those reaches, I think, about it was somewhere around 0.4 meters per second, which is quite fast for convective airflow. So they're really designed to optimize that and cool the print head in an extremely compact package while being very inexpensive to manufacture.
Wow, very cool. So I got to know, where did TIKO come from? Who are you guys, and what is your background? Kind of what is your you know, how did you guys come together and decide to bring this product to market?
Joke that it doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our printer, and it's sort of this joke, but there's a real meaning behind it, which is that that we don't have to be anybody important. We don't need to have a huge R&D budget. We don't need to have huge credentials. We don't need that. And you know why that's possible? Because we have a 3D printer. And I'm not talking about TIKO. I mean the one we have before that. Some of our initial ideas, we would have had to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to prototype them to see if they were feasible. But instead, having a 3D printer, we just said, hey, we have this pretty crazy idea. Why don't we just try it out? Why don't we just print it? And we did. And for almost nothing, we had a proof of concept just like that in our bedroom. It was unbelievably easy. And so that's what we're here to represent, that you don't have to be somebody special to create things. If you have access to this kind of technology, who knows what you can do.
Hey, wait a minute there. We are special. I just wanted to say, give you
a little special.
Yeah, hats off is that, no, it does take some effort, but you are right. As Chris can allude to, we both use 3D printers on a day-to-day basis. I've created a line of products, and if it weren't for 3D printing, it would take me probably a lot longer. I remember the old days. I'm dating myself here, but designing electronics back in the late 80s, early 90s took months, and now you can do it in a matter of days. And so, yeah, I truly agree with you there, and obviously we're seeing more of this. But, don't take away the fact that you're not the center of this. You've got a very unique printer, and you've obviously looked at a lot of different designs and tried to improve it. So I've got the three of you up here. For whatever reason, you didn't appear on camera, so I'm going to take advantage in your Kickstarter. So it looks like there's three of you. Matt, you're the one in the middle, and then Sharon's off to the left, and then Mike is off to the right. And if I remember correctly, you're all from Canada? Is that what I understood?
Yeah, we're from the Toronto area.
I don't have that. Where's that Canadian twang? I don't hear it. Which one of you have it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's funny. We've had a few people from up north, and sometimes it's more prominent than others. Others can just turn it on when they want. But
I feel like a lot of times the Midwest, there's certain parts of the Midwest that have a heavier accent even than Canadians, and then or Canucks, and then there's and there's you know, but then you go to certain parts of Canada, and it's like they have a lot of twang. They've got a lot of the twang. But no, well, this is a great project. Just really stoked for you guys that you're doing really well on your campaign. It looks like I was on your Kickstarter page. It looks like you guys kind of developed this at the Spark Center. Is that right?
Spark Center definitely played a huge role. We already had something when we approached them, but they gave us a lot of mentoring, a lot of advice, and they actually hosted a competition for $25,000. It was a nonprofit competition organized by them and by various sponsors, and we took home the gold on that one, and it was a huge help. And now we're in their incubator program. I mean, it goes back to sort of our team where we are 3 people, we are the core, and sure, we've done some pretty awesome stuff, but there's no way we could have done it all by ourselves. It's because of the help from people like Spark Center that we are where we are now.
Great.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of tell us a little bit more about this. I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to get $179. This seems like a great gift. I told my my sister, who has actually been following pretty regularly about this, and they're really looking at getting one for their kids. So it looks like it's very kid-friendly. In fact, one of the points you made is that you have a sensor in there if the, here we go, well, missed it already, but you have a sensor in there that prevents this thing or the hot end from turning on when it's been lifted, which I think is a smart feature. What else is in here that we didn't talk about? Oh, probably the main point, your uni-body, as both Chris and I can testify to. We have Delta printers, and the prominent thing are those rails that stand on each corner. That in the case of ours, we have belts that move the pivoting arms, but what you've done is built it into the case itself. So I mean, just hats off and all the creativity and that went into this, and it looks nice. And again, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get one of these. All right, Chris, if you want to close it off, and again, we appreciate Matt, Sharon, and Mike coming on and talking about the TIKO.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys coming on, and for anybody that wants to go check out their campaign, just go over to Kickstarter.com, type in TIKO, the TIKO project. You're going to be a little far down on the list by now, even though they're only 3 days in. But if you want to get yourself one, you might, like Mike said, you might be able to get one by Christmas. If you get in now, they're only $179. I think I'm going to go and sign up for one today. So,
guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. So on to our next news item.
Hey, it's mine. Yay!
Yay!
So our next item, and if you remember, we just showed the video for this, but my sister, who seems to be following me, thank you, Cotty, for another link, but it appears that this was a popular item in the news this week. I guess Centauri whiskey, is it that, or Suntory? I don't know who actually creates the whiskey, but they do something really fun. And here's an image behind me. They've taken a Japanese pagoda and created a little ice cube of it, of intricate design. It makes
that
me
looks
kind of
so cool.
Yeah, and as mentioned, we showed the video, and it's out on YouTube. But here's some other creatures. I think that's what is that, Luigi or whatever his name is from that video game. A shoe, a ring, an Apple computer, a guitar, the Statue of Liberty, Man on the Moon. I like this one.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, we should have. What is this here? Is this one of
Buddha.
Buddhas? Yeah.
A winged victory.
Oh, look, your favorite. And Godzilla, of course.
Godzilla.
And look at that Jaws. That's kind of funny. So, mermaid. I mean, obviously a lot of things.
It's on and on.
Yeah.
Wow.
But once a couple of things. If you go back to the article itself, it talks about how they had to chill the CNC to, where does it say, like minus something. -3 degrees or something
Oh,
like
because the
that.
bit would heat up.
Yep, would have melted it. So they kept that cool in order to chisel out the ice. But man, I don't know with these. Look at this. This looks like the helmet from
Boba Fett or Daft
no
Punk.
Daft Punk. Well, very fun,
Oh,
cool
wow.
little advertising campaign, but I sure wouldn't want those to go to waste. But on that note, a little bit later, I'm going to show you how to make your own ice cubes. And no, you don't need a very expensive CNC printer. All you need is your 3D printer and this other material. I had the box, but I must have left it upstairs. That's a silicone type putty, two-part that you mix together, and we'll kind of go through that a little bit later. All right, on to your next item, Chris.
Awesome. My next item is, well, Matter Hackers, who I get a lot of my materials from. They released a lot of new things yesterday and the day before. One of which was Talman brought out some new products onto the market. The Talman Palladium. So it's a low warp PLA. So Talman, who's responsible for a lot of these great new materials coming out of the market, has this new kind of PLA material that's supposed to be easy to print. They are specially formulating. The thing I love about Talman's products is they really do put a lot of effort into the spec sheets and making sure that everything is 3D printable and that they actually design the materials from the ground up to be 3D printable. They also brought out a Talman Alloy 910 filament, which is extremely durable and high tensile strength nylon and it's similar in a shrink factor to the T-glaze product. So kind of an interesting. They say it's like really made for functional parts. And then if you go back to Matter Hackers' site, E3D also had some. This is kind of related on the same front, just because I found out about it first through Matter Hackers, but then went to E3D's website. They have a new E3D Light 6 hot end, which has a lot of the benefits of the all-metal hot end. It does have a PTFE liner, which, like they even say in their own video, is like, well, we had to, if we wanted to bring the cost down, we had to get a PTFE liner. But they brought the cost down by engineering each and every one of these fins to be, optimally cost efficient. So they were able to bring this hot end down to $43. So you can get yourself an all metal hot end for $43, which is rival to a lot of these crappy clones on the market. So kind of cool. A lot of cool new 3D printing products that rolled out this week. You got some materials. IGIS, which I have some IGIS bearing material filament. I've had some samples direct from the manufacturer, but Matter Hackers now carries it in stock as well. So they announced that. They have this new
That's
G
a
Max.
nice looking hot end.
Oh, the E3D hot end is just a killer. I just we'll get into my my project for the week. It involves the E3D, and we'll talk about that when we get up to our projects. But lots of new products this week. So here's some iGlider filament. This is kind of cool. So IGIS makes linear bearings. They make plastic bearings. So they have a plastic material that has these lubricating properties. They're used everywhere, even in automotive, machinery, industrial applications, all over the gamut of technology. They're really actually a desirable way to implement a bearing solution. And so now they've taken that same thermoplastic that's in all these bearings used in furniture and all over the world for all kinds of different uses. Wherever traditionally you'd see a metal bearing, a lot of times now they're getting replaced with plastic bearings because they're so much less expensive and they actually have a longer lifespan than a metal bearing, believe it or not. So what they've done now is they've made it in filament form, so you can print your own bearings. So if you had a place where you had plastic interfacing with something that needed to move, you wanted to print your own linear rail bearings. You wanted to, or you just had some new idea that, for a bearing, a plastic bearing or bushing, this would be a great solution for you. So they've got a couple different types of filament out that you can design your own bearing and then print it out on your 3D printer. So pretty cool. I can't wait to kind of test this out. I have a couple cool ideas that I've been working on for quite some time, and I've been wanting to put this on the machine for a while. So
Very cool. Yeah, I actually have gotten a few emails from them, and I've used their PET in the past, but it was one of the first PET materials that came out, and I actually had a few issues with it. But I've had a couple of other things. I've had some nylon that printed pretty good, but like you had, I had the popping and cracking. I said, "What the hell's going on? My printer."
yeah,
And then I found out through some research that you have to bake it. Luckily we don't live in a very humid area, but obviously there's enough humidity to create some problems. But yeah, I've been keeping an eye on them. And as you know, actually it's one of my items later on, I'm a big fan of Polymaker and their Polymax. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. I just got my new black material in. So, yeah. Okay, so on to my next item. What do we got here? Student creates super fast membrane-based 3D printer. Thank you, Eddie, out from 3dprinting.com. It's so funny, and you've kind of missed the last episodes. Were you on for our Carbon3D clip?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you missed the one last week for the people down in Australia who have come out with, I think they mentioned it here, the Gizmo 3D. And now this student who is in class right now, otherwise he'd be on to talk about it himself. But I've asked him to maybe do a little interview with us next week. But, now we've got a college kid trying to beat the record now. But interesting is that not only does he talk about his own product, and I'll go ahead and play the little video, but Brad couldn't make it today, but he did write to me, and I'll go ahead and read what Brad wrote to me because he didn't have the time today. He has an 8 to 5 job. But so he thinks that this guy from Buffalo EDU is using an antioxidant impregnated plastic membrane, and then he's got a Wikipedia link, which I'll put in the show notes, and he thinks that's possibly how he's getting the fast times. But a cool thing about this guy is that because he's obviously got some experience building machines like Brad, he came to the same conclusion that Brad did, is that all of these print designs have an open frame. They're not solid masses. And he says the reason for it, and he also alludes to it in this article here, is that the, as they call it, the vacuum that's created and having to pull layer by layer, the forces are too great. And that's why you're seeing all these fast prints being done with the open frame like the Eiffel Tower and that geospheric object that Carbon3D promoted. So he agrees with it, and I wanted to come on and kind of have him come on to kind of talk about it. But here in 12 minutes and 6 seconds, it looks like he's almost printed the Eiffel Tower.
Wow. Yeah, pretty fast.
Yeah. So it's 8 times speed. The thing is, all of them are accelerating the speed of their objects. But this took 12 minutes and 6 seconds. The people over at Gizmo 3D said theirs took 6 seconds, very similar, but this one looks a little taller than some of the others. But as you can see here, it does look like another, what do you want to call it, a lab-based 3D printer. The same thing for the people out of Gizmo 3D. In fact, they never really showed their printer per se. At least we can actually see this guy's. So hopefully we'll have him on for an interview to kind of talk about it, and maybe we'll get Brad in on it and kind of talk shop with SLAs, with obviously Brad being our local expert, and then having this guy from what did I say he's from? Buffalo, University of Buffalo.
Huh.
So this has been in the news. So it looks like a lot of people are coming up with it, but you notice there really isn't a lot of definition in this product. So he does talk about 15 microns, 10 microns, about the resolution of it. He kind of shows the product here that he used. And then obviously here's the actual size of it.
Wow.
So there's obviously a great number of people who are really trying to push the envelope with materials. So like we had in the RepRap and the additive FDM or FFF processing, we're seeing a lot of accelerated changes here in the SLA market as well. So, hats off to these people and their inventiveness. I mean, we just talked to TIKO, and we got this guy. We've got Brad Hill. We got all this stuff coming out, and my pockets are lined with lint. What a frustrating time. Okay, on to your next. Actually, I think that covers all of our news items. We tried to shorten it so we can talk about our own projects and our sections now. One of the things that I want to do in future episodes is create chapters. So if you want to go to one particular area of our podcast, because I know we're kind of long-winded here, we run about an hour and a half, and there may be only one section. So I'm going to start putting chapters in our YouTube video. And one of the things I did over the last couple of days is put up all of our backlog of podcasts. And I apologize to those of you who like podcasts. I know that I do. And just putting on the audio from some of this in a car ride or just doing things around the house is super fun. We'll also keep that in mind and try to verbalize what we're showing on the screen. As in the case here, we were looking at images and videos of this guy from Buffalo University. But yeah, if you remember last week, I really had enough of this, but thanks to the encouragement of Brian, Jasper, and a few others, as well as Chris just saying, stop having a pity party, hence the name title. No more pity parties. We've got TIKO.
You do such a good job, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to keep plugging away, and who knows? As long as I get a few dollars to feed the coffers, I'd appreciate it. One of the things I'm also encouraging, hey, subscribe. I don't know. They tell me if the more subscribers you get, the more people watching, they'll actually start paying you a little bit of money. Well, we'll see if that happens. We're not going to be in, what is his name? I can't think of it now. Cutie Pie range. But, oh, well. Okay, so let's see who's first. I guess I can jump right into my product. 4eyes 2.0. Here we go. Dun, da, da.
4eyes 2.0. Oh, wow.
So this is a rendering. I've been using, obviously, Fusion 360, and they've actually got a cool 3D print, 3D renderer built into it. This is a version that if I wanted to get it milled out of aluminum. But one of the things that I have found to be an issue with my previous design is, one, the lenses were, the diameter was too small. In order to fit the frame, so if you notice here, I'm using a larger lens, and I'm not going to give away any details because we know what happened the last time I gave away the shop. But in this one, these are specially custom-made lenses that I have been calculating, and I just got a set in. Let's see if I've got an image. I think I've got an image I can show, but I'll let Chris go into his next item. So I've been working on this, and then I've also been working on the latest project, which I'm kind of excited about. Occipital has finally kind of moved forward and allowed their camera or their sensor to, especially in the iOS app, it's not been a problem in the Sconnect app, to get closer to the object. So with that and my new lens system, we get about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times the detail. Plus, I've been able to tweak some of the settings, so probably in May, as soon as Occipital releases the SDK that I've got some information on, and I've got a special version so I can do close-up work. As soon as they release that, I will have a new app in the App Store that allows you to use the 4eyes with your iOS device. And I'm also working with BioStep in LA to come out with their application in the same time frame. So yeah, things are looking forward. If you want to put some pre-orders in, on Sunday I'm going to put together a sales sheet and a new website for this so that you can go ahead and pre-order. And they're
Wow.
probably about the same price, but the lenses,
Or better.
they're better. So there you go.
Awesome. Congrats, Mike. Very cool.
Thanks. Okay,
Yeah.
so on to your project. You've got a ton of them.
Well, I've always got a few tricks up my sleeve. I've got a couple cool projects. I just ordered me a Lulzbot Mini to complement my Lulzbot Taz 4. I
You
just
said
love my.
order. Do you have it in, or?
It's going to be here today, so I'm going to be waiting for the FedEx guy. It'll be like Christmas. I'll open it up. Yeah, so, my Taz is so awesome. I love it. But it's booked all the time, and I can't ever use it. So, all my customers come in and they want to use it, and so they're paying, and so I don't get to use it as much as I'd like to. So I had to get a Lulzbot Mini. No, and I also the Lulzbot Mini. I plan to kind of turn it into a little nylon powerhouse. So that's one project of the week, and then I have another project. I just upgraded my Rostock Max. I was having some issues with the E3D hot end that I had, and I wanted to maximize the speed anyway, so I switched it out with a Volcano E3D Volcano hot end. So I'm doing the it has a much larger orifice size and a little bit different heater block on it, but for the most part, the rest of the components remain the same. So it's really quick and easy to wire in, and now I've done that, and so I'm tinkering with that today. I started playing with it yesterday, so got it going yesterday, and the benefit of the Volcano is it's a much larger orifice size, so you can print a lot faster, and your layers are actually thicker, or your contour is a lot thicker, which they claim increases the stability or the strength of parts. So because you've got a larger layer size. So yeah, I really can't wait to kind of be speed printing on the Rostock Max, get that thing going again, and I've been doing some prints on it, and then I had some jamming issues, but now those are resolved, and it's gonna be my race machine. So it'll build nice big parts, and then my Lulzbot Mini will be kind of for smaller, because it does small parts. But the Lulzbot Mini has some great features built into it. It's got the new Lulzbot hot end, all metal hot end, hexagonal, and then it also has an auto bed leveling function, and then it's got the PEI sheet on the top. So it'll print anything from ABS to nylon to polycarb. That's what that all metal hot end lets you crank up those temps, and yeah, I'll have a review for it hopefully next week.
Wow. So you're getting a Mini.
I'm going Mini. I wanted to add one. So I went on. If you go into the developer site that Lulzbot has, I think it's devel.lulzbot.com. You can actually see in almost real time them developing like their next wave of machines. You can actually see their BOMs, like their bill of materials. You can actually see their production scheduling. So the Taz 5 just was released about what was it, maybe a month ago, and it's got the all metal hot end, right? So that the Taz 5 or the Taz Mini has on it. So they just unveiled the Taz 5 right after the Taz Mini came out. The Taz Mini came out at CES, right around CES time.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually have SolidWorks drawings, which I downloaded and went through, of course, to see the Taz 6. What is the Taz 6? Well, the Taz 6 is going to incorporate, so far, what it's incorporating is it's got some sort of new electronics housing to kind of match the Taz Mini. It has the auto bed leveling washers on the SolidWorks drawings, and then it's got the new belt retaining system. Instead of cable, it's got those cable, not belt retaining. It's got a cable, like the cable management system, a better cable management system that's more kind of industrial grade. So that's shown in the SolidWorks drawings. So what else? But their production schedule says sometime in July. So they have already started working on this. I'm not trying to give away and say, oh, don't go get a TAS 5, don't get a TAS 4, don't get a TAS Mini, because the TAS 6 is right around the corner. So for me, I knew that the TAS 6 is coming, but I still had to get me a TAS Mini just because I have some, like I said, my TAS, I can't even get on it because it's just working all the time. So.
Well, you know, the TAS is obviously been extremely popular. I think many people have reviewed it as being one of the best printers out there. So I better get on board with this. I'm still very happy with my modified Maker Gear M2.
Yeah, which is
one of the things
reviewed.
breaking in the news, and I was hoping to have them on. You know, I'm a big fan of Simplified 3D. Yeah, it's a paid slicer, but I think it's worth it. We've had them on before. I just heard last night, because I stay up so late, that they made a deal with FlashForge, and they are now going to be their slicer. Now, if you remember, Flash Forward has Forge. Geez, Flash Forge. There we go. Is one of the most favorite on Amazon, but they're also the people behind, at least in my opinion. And from what I've heard, the the Home Depot printer, the Dremel tool printer, they look almost identical, and then they've got their new version coming out. But one of the things that people have complained about is their slicer. Well, that's no longer going to be an issue. I was hoping to have Clayton on from Simplify 3D, but he may have been too busy, so maybe we can get him on next week to talk about that deal. But on that note, like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Polymax Black, and I will talk about that a little bit later. But my other project that I've been working with, and it's going to segue into my product of the week, and I will jump to it right now, is occipital. You know, we've talked about it. You've actually got a chance to play with it, but they've actually released their Star Ops game. And if you remember, this is
Ah,
the game that uses their sensor, but instead of scanning things, it actually scans the room, but provides, as I call it, environment awareness. And this way it knows where your walls are and allows you to walk around. So literally, instead of being static and using a joystick or moving your fingers around on the tablet, you literally walk around. Now, obviously they know that your room may not be large enough for the virtual room that's in the game. So they provide some tools to like zoom to another location. I guess they call it teleportation or something like that, and the ability to freeze your position so that if you actually reach one of your own existing walls, you can turn around and continue in the game. It's fairly transparent. Didn't you agree, Chris? Wasn't it kind of
oh,
fun?
it's pretty fun. You know, I think I'm a big gamer when I can. And my platform of choice has always been the Nintendo products because they are always taking the experience out of they're trying to push the envelope on like how you interface, and kind of like what we were talking about a lot with the people at Real 2015 is physical computing, how you physically react. That's why I think the Wii was actually one of the first video game platforms to do that, where you were actually physically interacting with your game, with your video game. In almost every game that they've made since the Wii, Nintendo has some. I mean, Zelda, you can sword fight actually with the sword, which is, I mean, that's just cool. And I mean, they just the whole way that you interact with games. I just love how they're kind of pushing this forward. And what Occipital has done is they've actually made it so you're not only reacting with the game, but the game is reacting or acting with your environment that you're standing in. So it doesn't matter where you are, in what room, the game kind of becomes the room. And I just think it's a really clever concept, and the game worked really good for being it was still in beta when we played it,
Right.
and so yeah, really highly recommend anybody out
The other
there that.
the other cool thing is, and I've got it up on the screen, if you go out to iTunes, they have it for the big price of free. Obviously, you need the sensor itself, but kudos to them for keeping their software free. And they have, I'd say, 5 or 6 applications, a room capturing, a close-up scanning application. They've got a great SDK if you're a developer. They've really encouraged the development market, which is what I'm part of. So it's a really fun product, and I've heard that they've got other stuff going on. But on that note, I'm going to show, you know, we're going to take this to the next level. This is a tablet, and it's a fun thing, and you can move around, but we're going to take it to the next step. And I've shown this off before, but now that they're coming close to releasing the SDK, and I was told that you don't really need this new SDK. You can use the current SDK to do something like this already. But I'm going to be finishing up this in the next coming months. And if you can see it, this is and it also includes my new Neoti mount case, which I'll pull out. That will use the grip and shoot. It has my new lens collar, but the next version, the one that will actually be released, will have the bayonet connection so that you can use different types of additional lenses. This is the wide angle that they're going to be putting out soon. It will augment the functionality of the scanning. There's big pluses going to be going on that, and I really can't say any more than that. But I'm going to be creating a series of lenses, plus the Century Optics lenses will work with this too. Well, that's going to be built right into the case now, so it's going to be all in one. And as you know, I've got the Neoti Bright that I've been working on that now will include a rechargeable battery and a touch dimming circuit. That'll all be included in it. So that's coming along. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. This is the actual case with the mount. Again, using my Fusion 360 renderer.
Wow.
This is the red edition. I will have it multiple colors. If you're international market, you can order it directly on Shapeways. So, obviously save a few pennies. You won't get the nice rubber coating that I provide on these, but you may be able to get it quicker. Now, we talked about the lens before, and I want to show you where we're at with this. This is using the Skinex software. I've got some results with my iOS app, but I'm not ready to release any information on. But this is using their new color operation. This is unretouched, so that's why there's some smoothing issues still. But this is the color that you can get out of our current Skinex. But more importantly, this is the mesh underneath it. Now notice we actually have eye detail now. Even in the previous lens design, you didn't have this much eye detail.
Right.
And that is going to be the huge thing. So, and plus I found the tracking to be more efficient. I can actually get further information or around the object without losing tracking. So there's going to be a few benefits. What would you call it? The function that's needed in order to remove some of the curve it's not as dramatic now because of the lens I'm using now, less distortion. So a lot of pluses. So this is where we're at with that. So yeah, a lot of things coming soon. So this is a never-ending upgrading process. So again, S.T.A.R Ops is out there now. SDK will be out soon, but you don't really need it if you want to do some development. And I'll head to you on your Print Whisper, and then I'll cover a little bit on the digital toolbox for how to make your own ice cubes. So go ahead, Chris.
Awesome. Well, my first, so the thing is about 3D printing is there's so much always coming in the pipeline, always new materials, new hot ends, new this, new that. And so what I've found out through the School of Hard Knocks is to plan ahead and make yourself set yourself up for success by going modular. So instead of having to resolder, cut wires, recrimp, and all this, I mean, if you notice a Lulzbot printer, which is like probably, in my opinion, the most open source, easiest to upgrade printer, as soon as the TAS 4 comes out, or TAS 5 comes out, you can upgrade your TAS 4 to a TAS 5. And the way they do that is they make it easy by making it modular. And so and the easiest way to do that is to use Molex connectors. So in the show notes, what I did is I went out and kind of showed some of my favorite Molex connectors. So what you do is you take a crimping tool that also I included in the show notes. It's a $25 on Amazon crimping tool. I've used this thing probably as much as any other tool in my workbench. I use this crimping tool for everything. It crimps regular crimp connectors, but it also crimps these tiny little Molex connectors, and you really need to have a proper tool for the Molex connectors. That's the one thing about Molex is you can try to crimp them with pliers or whatever, but you're just a lot better off having the right tool for the job. So for 25 bucks, run out to Amazon. The link's in the show notes, and grab yourself the right crimp connector. And what you want to do is you want to set yourself up with Molex on the ends of where your hot ends are, where the ends of anything you think will need service or upgrade or repair in the future. Put a Molex connector on there, because when you tie them in together, they'll lock together, and then let's say your hot end goes out, or you want to upgrade to the E3D V7 or V8 whenever it comes out, you can do it, and you don't have to splice lines, you don't have to cut anything, you don't have to lose any wire because you took something out, you don't have to get your soldering iron out. These are all solderless connections. Actually, they work better without solder, so especially if you have the proper tool. So I put some of my favorite Molex connectors, the 4-pin ones. You can also find 2-pin ones, but the 4-pin one would cover a hot end with a thermistor, and then you could put a 2-pin one or a 4-pin one if you had 2 fans on your hot end. So I like to especially use these around the hot end area. Make sure you leave about at least 6 inches up the wire from your hot end, especially on the hot side of your wiring that's connected to your ceramic cartridge. That way you're not accidentally transferring any heat into the plastic Molex connectors. So that's my little Print Whisperer tip of the week, and I hope it saves you some time, because it sure saved me time over the years.
Very, very cool. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to my next my item here, and
Looks like we might have lost Mike for a second there. Mike, are you there? Mike was going to show us about his digital toolbox. Mike, are you there? And we were going to have possibly Brad chime in, but I think, like Mike said, Brad's off at work. He's got to work. He was going to tell us a little bit about the Buffalo resin. We can start off. I think we've pretty much covered most everything except for this one thing. We'll just wait a few seconds until Mike, are you there? Come in, Mike. There he is.
Jesus. So, oh well, I'm back. Sorry about that, Chris.
No worries.
Well, what I think is happening, it happened once before, it's trying to authenticating or signing me out right in the middle of my podcast now. I'm using 2-factor authentication with Google, and I think that's been the huge issue. So, obviously having you on the other end made sure we didn't have any dead space. So thanks. See, there is a huge reason why you're there, other than allowing me to prepare for my other items and make things go smoothly. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next item. And thank you for that tip, by the way. And yes, crimp tools are very important, and you shouldn't scrimp on them. But as mentioned, we were going to make ice and or ice figures. And like I said, I don't have a CNC machine. So I thought, well, how can I do this? Well, one of the things I did in a few episodes back, gosh, what's it been, 6 to 8 months now? I made some molds. So I'm going to actually go to my B camera. And as you can see here, I created, it's a 2-part silicon mold, and I've had a ton of them. And, these are characters I've developed. Actually, if you remember me Stark, here's me Stark here. So essentially, all you do is you mix the 2 parts together, and it's it's like Play-Doh. And then you take your part and you push it in. Now, one of the things that I need to caution you on is once you get this material, it's like a silicon 2-part putty, is don't push it too far in, because there's a couple of areas here where I did push it too far and I filled in a crack, and that's why I have the tape here. Otherwise, water will dribble out, or, it's not so bad with chocolate or candy, but obviously water has a much higher or lower viscosity than the other items like chocolate and so forth. So it just kind of drained right out. So I actually filled it in with a little bit of silicone, the stuff that you use for filling in holes. So I put some of that on last night, and I was able to actually make some ice cubes from these molds. And then I decided, well, I want to make my own ice cube tray. So I'm going to bounce over to, let's see, my other screen here. And let me add the part, and I have lost my screen, so give me a moment. But I am a big fan of NetFab, as most of you know already, and so I use it on a regular basis. And I am not changing. There we go. Okay, so like I said, I'm a big fan of NetFab. So I've taken that same scan that I used the other day that I created, and obviously it's a much larger scale than I need. So one of the first thing I'm going to do is going to use the scale tool, and I'm going to reduce this to, I don't know, 0.25. And so now that it'll fit on the bed. And the thing is, when you're wanting to create ice cubes, this is a positive model. I want to make a negative. So probably the easiest way to do that is uh, is to create, and nice thing about NetFab, it has other parts, is create a box. And so I didn't figure out, say we don't need our height to be so large, so we'll reduce that. But we can go back later on. But I wanted to create a part, and then what you want to do is combine the 2 parts. So I want to reorientate her. So one of the ways that you can do this is that, okay, it's running a little sluggish, but you can grab the edges of your model and rotate. Oops. Or you can use the rotate tools up here. And I'm going to do 90 degrees. There we go. And so with that, I can now push this into the material. So like that. And I'll move it in. And I'm going to do this real quick to save time, but obviously I've got part of my model extending out of it. Well, that's going to create a problem when I subtract the 2, because I'm going to have a hole, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So whoops, I didn't want to select that yet. So I'll cancel out of that. Make sure you select both parts, and you do that by using the Shift key and just clicking on your other part. And then go to the Union tool, but you want to subtract. So the way it works here is you identify what you want to subtract and push it into the red. So, and then you hit the minus button, and then it will take the 2 meshes and subtract them. So what will be left, because I'm asking it to remove the original parts, is only the new part with the subtracted part. And it will take a little bit of time because it's got to obviously go through, and the model I have here has tons of faces on it. So it does take a little bit of time. So while we're going on that, I'm going to go back to my B camera and actually show the results. And we're going to have some ice. Yeah, we're going to do our own. These were done with the model. So I'm going to take my Me-Stark ice cube. And my little Siobhan in costume. And actually, I have my panther head from my. So as you can see, have some fun here. Here's actually my elf character. Put another Me-Stark because we want it to be really cold. So as you can see, you can make your own ice cubes. And then I'm going to pour a little bit of tea. Yeah, kind
The
of looks
winter
like
is coming.
whiskey. Yeah, the winter is coming. Ha ha ha. And actually, doesn't that start next week or the week after? I think the week after is the next season of Game of Thrones. So to all you Game of Thrones, and I'll bounce back to my camera.
Oh, there he goes. Me Stark. He's drinking himself.
But you know what's kind of fun is that I put in a little bit of mint extract
Ooh.
into my ice. So now I've added a little minty taste to my tea.
Oh, very nice. Well, thank you
So,
for that
okay.
lesson. I can't
Well,
wait to
actually,
go home and make myself some 3D printed ice cube
okay, so
characters.
back to my screen. Here is the finished product, and I'll hit yes. So as you can see, as I mentioned, because I let it extend outside the box, give it a few seconds. So it finished subtracting it, and if you look in there, you can actually see, there you go. So it's done. And
That's
so
awesome.
now I can take this, and I'll bring up the other model. I made an ice cube tray. And here's the ice cube tray. Shut down that. With 4 of them. Now, the problem is, unlike a real ice cube tray, and I'll actually show the results, it's kind of difficult without a lot of supports to create a real ice. So I said, well, I'll just create a tray. Well, the problem with trays, and I did this very quick, so please forgive me for my idiocy, is it doesn't move very well. Plus, I use the least amount of infill possible, big mistake, because in order to reduce time, because as you can see, I only had a few layers of support on the bottom. And when I pulled it off, it ripped it right off because there wasn't enough infill to keep
Oh,
the
whoops.
bottom layer. Whoops. And then if you notice, the top layer has because of the infill, so it's not filled in
Yeah,
all the way either.
I ran into that.
But that's what happens when you try to do things at 2 o'clock in the morning. But there you go. And as I said, it doesn't have a lot of play. So, Chris, what do you think I should do with this? I mean, I don't, the problem with additive printing, especially if you've only got one extruder, is that printing without support, supports suck, in my opinion. So, how would you have done this? I mean, I tried to
Yeah,
use
I
little
think
infill.
I try to recommend other people, if you can 3D print the model itself, then what I would do, and my preference for ice cube trays is like what you had is the silicone. So I would print your master and then pour a silicone, either a 2-part or a air cure time silicone, and that's actually what some of my customers, that's what they do, is they print their master. They'll use 3D printing to print the master because it's repeatable. You can take CAD data and get real accurate results that way, and then print your master. And then the other way, if you couldn't 3D print it because of support, then you might be better off printing the mold and then pouring a, yeah, see, there you go. That's probably, you probably picked the best, that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking so as well. But the key is that this material is not cheap unless you buy it in bulk. But this is a 2-part, so it's easy to work with. It's like Play-Doh, and you just press your positive model into it. However, you can also get this in a more viscous form that pours, and you pour that. And there's been several on what's the maker .com, or make.com, they've got some things. What's the other big place that shows you how to do things? They've got several tutorials on how to do this as well. But there are ways to do it, and yes, I would have to agree. Making your own molds is probably not the best direction to go with your printing. As you could see, mine didn't turn out so well. But again, I did this very quickly, and if I did some more thinking on it, I probably could have done a little bit better with it. But yeah, it was a good experiment. Okay, well, that almost, gets us through the day. let's kind of go through there, and I'm going to have to switch. If you can bring it up in the link, what's going on this week in the 3D world, and that will end it for us today.
So we've got over at 3D Printing for Beginners / Fairs events. We've got, let's see, it's already April is upon us. We've got a second Guangzhou International 3D Printing Industry Exhibition in China, in Guangzhou. And we also have the Inside 3D Printing Conference and Expo in New York City at the Javits Convention Center, the same time frame, April 15th through 17th. We've got another, that's the same show. We've got Kazakhstan has a 3D print conference, so Borat will be very happy. And yeah, it just looks like we've got, and then at the same time, we've also got a 3D print show in New York around the same time frame, the day of and after at Center 548. So definitely can check those out. We've got the Additive Manufacturing Users Group Conference is happening in Jacksonville, Florida. That's one I've been to. That's a great show. That's like I'd say probably one of the most if you're a professional in the industry, that's probably one of the best ones to go to. They've got all kinds of technical symposiums, so that is definitely coming up really quick. It's a $795. It's a $795 to get into that show, so it is a little more pricey. We've also got quite a bit going on this month and next. Materialize has a world conference in Belgium. China Asia Expo. You can check these out. Go over to 3D Printing for Beginners / Fairs _events, and if you're interested,
it'll be in the show notes.
And it'll be in the show notes. So yeah. So once again, thanks to our listeners, and sorry for my absence, Mike. I missed you a bunch and missed the show.
I said I wasn't going to have any more pity party. I'm sorry. Okay, thanks, Chris.
But really happy to be back talking shop with you, and just lots of exciting stuff. Can't wait to see what awaits us next week. So we'll see you next time on another episode of All Things 3D.
Okay, I normally say bye at this point, but at this point I am going to switch to my camera and look into it and say, hey, if you like our show, subscribe. It's the first time you've seen it. We do this every Friday. We talk about a lot of stuff. We have our guest crashers come on. Sometimes we do great interviews. In fact, this last week we did one with Skip Rizzo, a clinical psychologist who's using VR for the last 2 decades. He's really got some good stuff to talk about. We kind of went down memory lane and VR stuff. But yeah, lots of things going on, obviously, every week. And, as Chris said, hopefully we can keep this moving forward, but without you, the audience, it's not much of a show. And we both love 3D, and we love talking, and we love talking to you. So, bye.
See you next time.